There's nothing I crave more than a good mystery anime, and it's unfortunately way too few and far between. But Odd Taxi hit just that itch that I was looking for. It is a series that aired in the spring 2021 anime season and ran for 13 episodes, and this is my review of it. Odd Taxi takes place in a bustling city, and for the most part, it follows a guy named Odokawa who is a taxi driver. And it pretty much includes most of the people that Odokawa shuffles around, different people that are his customers that he takes from place to place. And as the story progresses, it kind of follows a lot of these individuals that have had some kind of connection with Odokawa, either through directly or indirectly, and kind of the stories that surround them and what they're going through that all seem to somehow intertwine in some way. And in the entire time in the background, we have this kind of story that is progressing, that there is this missing high schooler that everybody is searching for. And it's in the way that Odd Taxi intertwines these stories that I get to really my first key reason why I think this is an amazing show. I liken it to something like Durarara. If you've ever watched that series, essentially is the same kind of concept, a large bustling city where there's a whole bunch of characters, and somehow all these characters have their fates and their lives intertwined in some way, but not to the degree that Odd Taxi pulls it off. I remember specifically when it gets to the backstory of Tanaka, which is this guy that essentially is kind of getting himself wrapped up in the idea of scoreboards and the hierarchies of popularity through achievement. And it goes into his history about how he was a kid and had erasers, and he was trying to be popular in his class through getting very rare erasers. And eventually this snowballs into his adulthood and how he manages to tie in that feeling that he had when he was younger to what he does now, which is play gacha games. And eventually at some point, his story intersects with Odokawa's, and it turns into this very vicious breakdown of him as a person. And you don't realize until you kind of analyze it, but throughout his history, you're seeing these little things that actually connect him to other characters in an eraser, in a screen name, in who drove past me and caused me to drop my phone. It is all these ways that they manage to take a character and intertwine them with other people, and then you'll see that same effect as you look into other characters and how their paths cross with other characters. And even though it feels like a bustling, huge city, it somehow still manages to make it feel like you can see these characters standing next to each other, even though they're so far apart, and their stories are so different, and their circumstances are so different. And along with their great stories, the characters I found all very, very endearing. And it's funny because at some point I found myself enjoying certain characters that you would seem a criminal. Characters that aren't necessarily good guys. I found myself kind of hoping that everything would kind of come through for them. And that's kind of a sign of character writing that you just don't really find in many cases. Now the mystery, because like I mentioned earlier, I eat up mystery. I love it. I cannot have enough mystery anime. And unfortunately, like I said, they're so few and far between. And I think Odd Taxi pulls that off so well. The mystery in Odd Taxi is really surrounding, obviously at the very beginning, the big question mark is, where's this high schooler? And then very quickly find out that there's somebody in Odokawa's closet. And you immediately start to wonder, is this missing person in Odokawa's closet? What is Odokawa's intentions here? He has sleep issues. He has all these different things kind of circling around him. He sees a doctor on a regular basis. He's obviously having issues. There's almost a sense of trying to understand what makes Odokawa tick. He seems like he's a very quiet person, but at the same time, he's involved with a lot of people. It seems like a very crooked cop seems to know him. He really quickly runs into Dobu, who is a criminal that everybody's kind of hunting for, and he starts working for him in a certain way, or at least being forced to work with him. And as it goes on, it seems like it snowballs as Odokawa finds himself progressively more involved with kind of the darker sides of the city itself. Badger games, crooked loans, kidnappings, all these kind of things he's kind of finding himself getting wrapped up into. And like I said, it's a snowball effect in that he kind of gets wrapped up in it and he's unable to kind of hit the brakes. Visually, the show looks good. I really did like the styling of it. Honestly, looking into it initially, I was like, animal people, really? But I think that ended up turning into the charm of the show itself. It is kind of the styling that ends up giving each one of these characters a very unique personality that I think really did shine in the end. And even if it has that animal styling to it, a lot of the characters still have the anime trappings. The girls still have the very wide eyes, the very wide anime eyes. They still have kind of a very moe look to them. But overall, like I said, I think it kind of cements it to have each of these characters have a very unique look to them. And it's a styling in the end I really do appreciate, and I really wasn't expecting to. And in a season with a lot of animes kind of having those unfortunately disappointing endings to them, I think Odd Taxi stands out as one of having a very amazing ending to it. Like, everything really did come together in the end, and while the entirety of the series was really so focused on so many characters and their circumstances, it manages to pull them all together and kind of show them in a way that almost has a self-reflection of their characters, and ultimately to this big bombastic end that I think has everybody at the edge of their seat. Now, if I had to give it one criticism, you're gonna pull one criticism out of me for Odd Taxi that I think is a 10 out of 10 show. It's a positive and a negative, I would say. This show technically has some context left to a side audio drama. And while you don't need to listen to the entirety of the audio dramas, there's specifically two of them that gives a more clear perspective of a certain character that is technically crucial to the ending. And I'll just leave it at that. And unfortunately, I don't like when shows do that. Give some kind of, you have to read the light novel to get this other story. You have to read this other book to get this perspective. You have to go to this website to get this. I like to have my full, complete story in an anime. But that just kind of gives me hope of having maybe a short OVA to kind of cover that, because it's very interesting. And it's equally the reason why I love this series so much. This audio drama on the side essentially follows I guess you could say, the travels of a pin. And again, this is one of those things that heightens my love for this series. Those little attention to detail, these little things that you might not notice the first time you watch it, and actually gives it rewatch value. And that you see this pin, and it keeps popping up. It's in this person's pocket. Now it's on this desk over here. And that pin has significance, and there's a story behind it. And to get that additional story was actually really fun to go into. And I do highly recommend people checking that out. It's just a perfect show. It is in every way, shape, a perfect show. The mystery is amazing. I love speculating on stuff every single episode. I love the characters so much. Each one of them had so much going for them. Whether, again, it's the budding idol that it will not let anybody else get in their way. The criminal that seems like he's a good person in the end. The criminal boss that has the decree of never kill. It's the small-time practitioner that's trying to look out for somebody that has been his patient for a long time. It's the friend just trying to seek out love that ends up getting himself into a whole lot of trouble. It's the social media geek that just wants fame and to get that one time of getting viral. It's all these characters that I grew to love, and I'm truly going to miss them. And their stories were so fantastic, and I loved how they all intertwined. And I have to say, the writers of this series were geniuses. This was a beautifully crafted series that I cannot express enough. Go watch Odd Taxi. This is literally a show that I'm going to have to find a place in at least my top 10 anime of all time. This is a perfect show that deserves to be watched. Please go watch Odd Taxi. It is an incredible series. But I should stop there. That is my thoughts and review of Odd Taxi, a 10 out of 10 series. If you did like this video, please leave a like down below. Share this video if you can. Get the word out there for people to watch Odd Taxi. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you all enjoyed. And you all take care.